Okay, welcome back, Jebel Ali. In this tutorial, we're going to create a game over sprite that will display if we bump into one of our obstacles or we go off the track. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to make sure I'm down here in my scratch sprite area, and I'm going to just move my mouse over here, and then I'm going to the second choice, which is paint to sprite. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to add some text. It's going to be quite a simple sprite with just text, so I'm going to go to the T here, don't need to convert to bitmap, and I'm going to click in the center of the screen, and I'm going to type in here game over and press enter for new line and player one. Okay, and then if I want, I can change the color of my text here to make it stand out. Click away, and then what else I'm going to do to be able to move your text when you're using a vector image, you just click on the arrow here, the select tool, and I'm going to move that into the middle of my sprite area here, then click away. Okay, and there you go, you should have a new sprite. So there's my game over, and I've placed it in the middle of my track. Okay, you can click and drag and move it. So there you go. So I've put it in the middle of my track. Obviously, it's going to not be displayed when my game starts. So what I've got to do here is make sure I go to events. So I'm still on my sprite. Actually, I'll rename it. Call it sprite 1. I'm going to change it to game over P1 for player 1. Okay, so I'm going to go into the code of my game over player 1 sprite. I'm going to drag my green flag. So I want something to happen when my game begins, and I want it to hide. So if you remember where hide is, it is here in the looks section. So I'm going to click in there, and I'm going to make sure I scroll down and I drag hide. Right, okay, so that's it's hidden. So when I press the green flag, you can see that it hides. Okay, if you want to see it again, you can just click on here and click on show, and that will just show it while you're in your design mode. Now, what I want it to happen is say game over when Gobo bumps into a character or goes off the screen. Now, what you'll need to do then is go back onto your main character. In this case, mine is Gobo. So I'm going to go to Gobo. Okay, now I'm just going to tidy this up a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use a variable to check if I've hit an obstacle or I've gone off the path or off the road. So I'm going to go to variables, and I'm going to make a new variable. I'm just going to delete that one. Okay, I'm going to make a variable, and I'm going to call it P1 for player 1 and CRASH for crash. I'm going to leave that in all sprites, and I'm going to click on OK. So that creates a variable here called P1 crash. Okay, so this is going to check and keep a track if I've crashed or not. Okay, so what I want to happen is that to be set to 0 when my game starts. So I need to go on to game over again, and then I'm going to, now watch what I'm doing here. I'm using the set laps block here. Not let set laps, sorry, yeah, the set laps. I can drag that on, that's okay, it's just a set variable. And then if I click on the drop down list, you see I've got P1 crash. And I want it to be set to 0 because it's going to check if I've been crashed. If it has a 0, it means I haven't crashed. So make sure it's set to 0. Then I go to Gobo. And now if I hit the green, I'll go on to the grass, or touch one of the characters, I want my variable to go from 0 to 1. Okay, so again, now I'm in my main character, and I want my set laps block back on here, And again, I want to change it to P1 crash, player 1 crash. This time, I want it to set to 1. Okay, and that block goes inside your if statement. Can you remember the if statement here? This is checking if I'm touching the green or touching any of these obstacles. Okay, so I'm going to put my set crash to just before my stop all. Okay, so if I touch green or I touch one of my obstacles, the variable set P1 crash will be set to 1. Okay, so it kind of checks and it remembers there's been a crash. And then I go to my game over. And now, what do you think I'm going to do? If you guessed a forever loop and an if statement, you're correct. So what I want to do here is, in my control blocks, I need to forever check if my variable crash, so I need variable crash, P1 crash, is equal to 1. So if I go to operators, and I've got my equals block here. Okay, I'm going to put that inside here in my if statements. And then I put my variable P1 crash. So remember, I'm checking if it's 1. If it's 1, what do you think I want this to happen here? I want my game over player 1 to show. So instead of hide, I go to looks and I go down here to hide. Sorry, not hide, got that wrong. I want show. So there's my show. So let's have a look again. So when my game starts, so I'm on my game over sprite here. I want my variable player 1 crash to be set to 0. So that means I haven't had the crash. Then I want my game over to hide. Let's see that happening. See, there you go, it hides. Then I want it to forever check if my variable player 1 crash is equal to 1. If it is, I want it to show. And it only changes to 1 when my character hits the grass or one of the obstacles. As soon as it does, it sets to 1. Okay, we're nearly there. Now, what we do need to do is make a slight change to our code. If you remember before, we stopped everything if we touched the character or the obstacles or we went off the side of the track. So instead of that now, instead of the stop all, we need to change it to this script. That makes sure only our main character stops and no other characters stop, okay? So if I try that now, so I can just show you that again. I'll just zoom in for you. And all I did there was I changed to this script, not all, okay? And now let's try that. So when I go, I'm going around nicely. And when I go off there, and you see my go over player 1 sprite is displayed and gobo no longer moves. Okay, now if you don't want player 1 crash variable to display because you know you crashed, you can go to your variables section here and just untick player 1 crash, and that will remove it. It will still work if I click play again, and it will work. Let's see if it works when I hit an obstacle. Oh, there you go. So player 1 game over. Okay, try that and see how you get on.